Karen mocked my daughter's face scar. I'm a presidential medical advisor. You'd think after advising 3 administrations, drafting health policy during a pandemic, and helping to rebuild global medical partnerships, I'd be immune to small-town cruelty. You'd be wrong, because all it took to break the illusion was a glass of rosé, a paper crown, and a woman named Karen Lancaster sneering at my daughter's face like she was subhuman. My name is Dr. Jamal Whitaker, Chief Medical Advisor to the Office of the President. My job is to fight for the dignity and rights of patients, especially children across the nation. But nothing prepared me to defend my own daughter from a HOA tyrant in a sundress. We'd only been in Willow Hills for 6 weeks. After years of D.C. war rooms and emergency task forces, my wife Lena and I decided it was time to slow things down, if only for Maya's sake. Maya's 9, smart, goofy, science-obsessed, and yes, scarred. When she was 4, a faulty space heater in our old apartment shorted and caught fire. Maya got out, but not before a beam fell and grazed her cheek and jaw. She calls it her warrior mark. We call it a miracle. We enrolled her in therapy, connected her with burn survivor networks. She grew into herself like a tree through concrete. But some people don't see strength in scars. They see something they're allowed to mock. Karen Lancaster introduced herself the second we moved in. HOA president, self-declared community standard bearer. The kind of woman who smiled at Lena, but never looked her in the eye. Who flinched every time Maya walked past with her head held high. We tried to ignore it, until the birthday party. Maya's classmate Ellie invited her to a backyard celebration. Pony rides, cupcakes, lawn games. It was supposed to be normal. We brought a gift, stayed in the corner, gave Maya space to be a kid. She was laughing by the lemonade station when it happened. Karen leaned toward a cluster of parents, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. She said, "I don't know what kind of parent lets their kid show up like that. There are filters for a reason." Her eyes flicked toward Maya's scar. A few parents froze. Others looked away. One laughed nervous, unsure. But Maya heard. I saw her whole face drop. Her hand touched the scar like it was new. Lena stepped forward, fury in her eyes, but I held her back. Instead, I walked forward calmly, quietly, but deliberately. I pulled my wallet from my back pocket and held up the gold-plated badge inside. Karen, I'm Dr. Jamal Whitaker, Senior Advisor to the President of the United States for Public Health and Ethics. You just violated not only basic human decency, but the very principles I've spent my entire life defending. In front of children, she blinked. I wasn't done. You insulted a survivor, my daughter. You mocked a trauma survivor in public, on private property, in violation of your own HOA's non-discrimination clause. I stepped closer. And now you're going to learn what real accountability looks like? No one moved. The music had stopped, the laughter gone. Karen's smirk twitched, then faltered, then dropped completely. She reached for a justification, any justification. I just said she could have worn a hat. I mean, it's not like no. I interrupted. You said exactly what you meant. And now, you're going to answer for it. Maya walked past her, chin up. The entire party turned toward Karen, and that was the moment the illusion cracked. There's a peculiar kind of silence that comes after public cruelty. It's not peaceful. It's paralyzing. The kind of silence where parents glance at each other but say nothing, where neighbors avert their eyes, not out of shame but out of complicity. And in the middle of that backyard, with Maya quietly picking frosting off her untouched cupcake, I realized this wasn't just about my daughter. It was about every kid Karen had ever made feel unworthy. Karen didn't apologize that day. She left 20 minutes later, wine glass still half full, muttering about how some people can't take a joke. But what she didn't realize was that someone had filmed the moment. A mother named Erica Blonde, 2 kids. Quiet sent it to me that evening. The footage was only 17 seconds. Karen's comment, the look on Maya's face, my ID. Erica included a short message. She mocked my son's stutter last year. I didn't say anything. I regret it. Not this time. By morning, the video had hit Nextdoor, Facebook, and a local parents forum. Reactions poured in. That poor girl. Wait, that's the HOA president? She said worse to us last Halloween. How do we make a formal complaint? And just like that, Karen's mask began to crack. I wasn't done. That Monday, I started investigating the Willow Hills HOA, not with subpoenas or security clearances, but with the same precision I'd used briefing the president on pandemic bioethics. Within 2 hours, I had downloaded the HOA's bylaws and board minutes from their public site. And what I found was disturbing community presentation standards included language like, guests must maintain appearance conducive to community harmony. Members are advised to avoid excessive displays of personal scars, markings, or distracting accessories. The children's social participation guidelines encourage parents to gently discourage playtime with children who exhibit socially disruptive traits or visible conditions. It was bigoted, disguised as aesthetic policy, and it had Karen's fingerprints all over it. Erica wasn't the only one who reached out. Over the next 72 hours, I received 19 private messages. A teenage burn survivor who'd been denied entry to a community pool because her swimsuit violated visual harmony. A child with alopecia told to wear a beanie at all times or stay home. A boy with a cleft lip who'd been edited out of HOA photo day for symmetry. All stories ended the same: Karen had enforced it, and no one had stopped her. Until now, I requested a speaking slot at the next HOA public meeting. Rachel warned me it might get ugly. I told her I was counting on it. The clubhouse was full, dozens of residents, some clearly tense. Karen sat at the front, her signature pink scarf looped around her neck like a noose waiting to tighten. I took the mic. My name is Dr. Jamal Whitaker. My daughter was publicly mocked by the president of this HOA. But this isn't about a single insult. It's about a system that's allowed bigotry to masquerade as order. I projected the policy excerpts on a screen, then photos, then testimonies, blurred names, but clear truths. These policies aren't about harmony. They're about exclusion. They're about fear of difference, wrapped in phrases like visual standards and decorum. But scars are not shameful. Disabilities are not violations. Differences are not threats. A silence thicker than any HOA rulebook followed. And then one clap, then two, then the entire room. Karen stood. "This is defamation," she hissed. "You're twisting words. This is about standards, not hatred." I met her glare calmly, then explained the line about scars being excessive. She didn't answer. A mother named Latoya, whose son has vitiligo, spoke next. "Karen told me last summer that my son's skin made the other kids nervous. I didn't fight it. I didn't want more trouble. But now I wish I had." A father stood up. "My daughter's wheelchair was called visually invasive. You made us feel like pests in our own driveway." Another neighbor added, "We stopped attending events because our autistic son flapped his hands." Karen called it a security red flag. It was a reckoning. Karen turned paler than her wine. Someone asked aloud, "How did we let her run everything?" That was the moment the board called an emergency vote. And for the first time in 15 years, Karen was removed from her position. Effective immediately, because this wasn't about removing a person, it was about removing a mindset. I filed a civil rights complaint with the State Human Rights Commission. I sent a letter backed by testimonials and policy screenshots to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and I began drafting a new model policy, Equity First HOA Conduct Guidelines, designed to prevent ableism, appearance-based bias, and behavioral discrimination. Some people disappear quietly when they've been exposed. Karen wasn't one of them. Losing her HOA title didn't end her grip on the community, at least not right away. Like any tyrant with a bruised ego and a phone full of contacts, she went down swinging. But what she didn't realize was this. She'd finally picked a fight with someone who knew exactly how systems work and how to dismantle them. 3 days after the town hall, Karen's damage control began. She launched a community email blast titled "In Defense of Civility: Why Standards Still Matter." She didn't name Maya, but she didn't have to. The dog whistle was loud. We must resist the erosion of social boundaries under the weight of emotional politics. I've always worked for peaceful order, not chaos disguised as inclusion. Neighborhoods shouldn't become experiments in victimhood. The final line chilled me. We are losing control over what our communities look like. This wasn't about policy anymore. It was ideology. I filed a request for all archived HOA communication logs. Turns out, the board had kept everything, in over a dozen internal messages. Karen had written things like, "Families like that are why our home values drop. If we start letting every disfigured kid in, we'll end up with lawsuits every week. Don't let the parents from that side of the hill hijack this community." I released the screenshots anonymously to a reporter I trusted within 48 hours. Channel 6 News aired an investigative segment titled "Scars and Standards, A Community Divided." They blurred Maya's face, but included her drawing a picture of a smiling girl with stars around her head and a line beneath that read, "I am strong, even when people stare." The segment ended with Karen's leaked quote, "Some people just weren't born for front porches." Public reaction was swift, fierce, unrelenting. Then came the phone call. A senior producer at a major network invited me to speak on their Sunday panel. Normally, I declined TV. I'd built my reputation through policy, not performance. But this time I accepted. I wasn't there as Dr. Whitaker, federal advisor. I was there as Maya's dad. The host opened gently. "You've helped craft national guidelines on medical equity, but this was your daughter?" I nodded. "Yes. And scars, physical or otherwise, aren't something to hide. They're proof of survival." She leaned forward. "What do you say to people who believe HOAs have the right to set aesthetic standards?" I paused. What happens when those standards become tools of discrimination? Who decides what's acceptable? And more importantly, who gets left behind? Then I turned to the camera. If your child has a scar, a wheelchair, a difference this story is for them, you are not less than, you are not shameful, you belong on the front porch too. After the interview aired, Karen tried to rally a petition to get me removed from all medical influence over national schools. The petition flopped. The platform removed it for hate speech within 12 hours. Sponsors began pulling from the HOA's affiliate events. The local Rotary Club disinvited Karen from their planning council. Her name was removed from the Women of Order civic group she co-founded. Even her longtime allies stepped back. One quietly emailed me. "We let her lead because we were too lazy to ask if she deserved it." The policy I had drafted, Equity First HOA guidelines, gained traction fast. With the help of the Human Rights Commission and the President's Office for Community Health, we pushed it through regional review boards. It was adopted in 3 counties in under 2 months. Core protections included prohibition of appearance-based social exclusion, review and auditing of all HOA citations involving children, bans on discriminatory phrasing like visual harmony and aesthetic disruption, required training for HOA board members in anti-bias practices. Maya was invited to a local school to speak to 4th graders about her story. She brought a photo of the scar from the hospital, her drawing, and a quote written in crayon. "Scars mean you survived, and surviving means you're amazing." One girl with a birthmark cried in the back row, and Maya hugged her. Right there, without fear. The turning point didn't come with a gavel or a microphone. It came in the form of a handwritten note left in our mailbox. "I'm sorry. My son has a cleft palate. We never came to HOA events because of the stairs. Thank you for fighting. For all of us. No name, no return address, just quiet, aching gratitude." That was when I realized this story had grown far beyond Karen Lancaster. This was about every child who hid their face, every parent who stayed home, every neighbor who shrank under the weight of rules designed to make them feel less. It was time to rewrite those rules. With the Human Rights Commission backing our proposed Equity First HOA guidelines, I traveled to Sacramento to meet with the Regional Housing Policy Council. What started as a local HOA complaint now had the potential to become state-level reform. I presented our findings: 47 instances of aesthetic discrimination tied to the language of visual harmony or community standards. 21 formal complaints filed against Willow Hills HOA over 10 years, 0 resolved in favor of the victim. 6 children denied participation in community events due to visible medical conditions. I followed the data with stories, faces, names, parents. Then I introduced Maya via video, sharing her drawing and a quote. Scars are just the places where your story had to be extra brave. It silenced the room. The committee voted unanimously to adopt the model guidelines for pilot testing across 3 counties. While the policies moved upward, Karen's behavior continued to spiral. After her removal, she tried to form an independent neighborhood enforcement watch, but without board support or authority, she was issuing empty violations like leaflets in a windstorm. One letter claimed a neighbor's teenager contributed to moral visual disorder for wearing goth makeup. When she physically removed a yard banner that read, "We belong too," the homeowners filed a restraining order. Then came the civil suit, a multifamily action citing harassment, defamation, and discriminatory HOA enforcement under color of authority. Her defense that she had upheld order where others feared confrontation? The court wasn't impressed. She was found guilty of intentional infliction of emotional distress, defamation, discriminatory enforcement of pseudo-policy, and misuse of a civic title. The judge didn't send her to jail. Instead, she was sentenced to court-mandated bias rehabilitation counseling, a lifetime ban from holding any civic or neighborhood governance position, $75,000 in damages to be split among affected families. Karen left the courthouse wearing sunglasses in silence. With Karen gone, the Willow Hills community began something it hadn't done in years. It gathered. Maya helped plan the first Neighborhood Unity Fair, a completely inclusive event with booths celebrating visible differences. There were portrait stations with unfiltered photography, scar art, t-shirt printing with slogans like "My face," "My story," and "Different isn't dangerous." Rachel set up a story circle where kids could talk about what made them feel excluded and how they now felt seen. For the first time since we moved here, no one whispered, no one stared, no one flinched. That fall, California passed the Community Inclusion and Ethics in Housing Act, modeled in part on our case. It required all registered HOAs in the state to complete annual equity training, removal of aesthetic standards tied to scars, disabilities, assistive devices, or visible conditions, language audits on community guidelines, clear appeal paths for exclusionary decisions involving children or health. The media called it Maya's Law. Maya, she just called it fair. The old HOA kiosk, the one Karen used to post violations, was torn down. In its place, the city installed a bench, steel, clean-lined, simple, etched into the back to those who were told they didn't belong. You always did, in honor of Maya and all brave faces. Some wounds don't close with time. They close with truth. And when truth is spoken, not whispered, not buried, not made palatable, it becomes more powerful than any scar, any rule book, any neighborhood Karen ever could be. Maya taught me that. 1 year later, it's been a year since the backyard birthday party where Karen mocked my daughter's face for being disruptive. A year since Maya touched her scar with trembling fingers. A year since a grown woman tried to reduce my child to an aesthetic violation. But now, as I watch Maya walk across the stage of her new elementary school auditorium, leading a school-wide assembly titled "We Belong Day," I don't see trembling. I see fire. She steps up to the mic in a yellow dress, her favorite color. Her cheek glows under the spotlight, not as something to hide, but as her badge of honor. Hi, my name is Maya Whitaker. I used to be scared when people looked at my face too long. Then my dad said something I never forgot. He said, "Scars mean you're still here." So now I say that too. She pauses, scans the room of kids, grown-ups, parents wiping eyes. If you have a scar, a limp, a mark, a story that changed your face or your body, don't hide it. Make it shine. Applause bursts across the gymnasium. Teachers, parents, even the principal claps the longest. Rachel, who had once gripped my arm to hold herself back from confronting Karen with fury, now leads the district's Community Inclusion Board. She meets with new families, helps guide updated policies on classroom empathy and representation. She calls it repair work. It's not glamorous, it's not televised, but it's the opposite of silence, and that's what matters. Karen moved 3 towns away. According to reports, she filed for personal bankruptcy after the civil case. But more importantly, her name carries weight now, not power, but warning. Her story is used in HOA training videos as an example of discriminatory enforcement. She's a case study in civil rights seminars. In the end, she became exactly what she feared most, a cautionary tale. In Willow Hills, things sound different now. The HOA is gone. In its place, the Neighborhood Care Collective leads with listening circles, youth-led events, and kindness policies. Instead of violations, we have community check-ins. Instead of compliance officers, we have resident liaisons. Instead of fear, we have trust. The same lawn where Maya once stood frozen in shame now hosts monthly Scars and Stories picnics, where people celebrate their survival, not silence it. I was invited back on the same national panel a year later. The host smiled. Dr. Whitaker. What's changed since we last spoke? I held up a copy of the Community Inclusion and Ethics in Housing Act, now passed in 5 states. We changed the language. I said, because language is law, and law shapes lives. She asked. And Maya, I smiled. She changed the world. Maybe you've been silent. Maybe you've stood in a room while someone mocked a child's appearance, a neighbor's accent, a person's disability, and you didn't know what to say. Or maybe you've been the one mocked, shamed, flattened by rules that were never about order, but about control. Here's what I've learned. Cruelty doesn't always shout. Sometimes it wears a HOA badge. Justice doesn't always march. Sometimes it shows up in a yellow dress with a scar and a microphone. Change doesn't come from titles. It comes from truth. If this story made your heart burn, ache, or swell, don't scroll past it. Share it. Talk about it. Write your version. Ask your neighborhood. What are our rules really protecting? Who do they exclude? And how do we make room for every child to walk without shrinking? Because someone else's Karen is out there, still holding her clipboard, and someone else's Maya is watching. Let's make sure she hears what she never expected to. You are seen, you are strong, and you've always belonged.